You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Oh yeah, Roy Keane. He's even not even a mention of Roy Keane at this stage now. It's so old news after what happened yesterday.
The fact that he was sitting in the stands on Saturday.
I saw Joe tweeting this, and I felt the same in the moment that he was about to stick his finger up to the camera. But that was one part of it. I don't know if everybody actually watched the person sitting beside Roy Keane doing an old excavation of the nose and then a bit of a roll, and just before the camera goes, a flick, and you're like, oh my God. But nobody really noticed because it's like Roy Keane sitting beside him who's giving his mate a bit of crap for something that happened and then turning back to the camera, and it looks like just about to give the whole stadium the fingers, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, no, unfortunately not.
Go back and check the nose picker though.
Yeah.
No nose picking allowed in public. If you're going to do it, put a tissue in front of it. Shield us from your disgrace.
Is that like some sort of metaphor for the Cork footballers on Saturday? Is there like a segue here that we're looking for?
I mean, the Cork footballers, right? Whatever's coming for the Cork footballers should be coming for the Mayo footballers. We'll deal with that in a minute. But like, lads, Mayo. I don't know. Who's in red?
Yeah, well, Mayo are in red. We're going to get to that in just a sec. But the Brawl is kind of where we have to start this morning as something, I guess. Like, I mean, as far as brawls go, you'd have to say that it was probably in the red as well, because other than the eye gouge, where were the flashpoints in this?
No. Oh, and I thought it was immediately into the top 3 or 4 Croke Park brawls. Come on.
Like, I mean, so obviously the standard setter is 1996.
Yeah,
and
you've done a whole documentary about it.
Yeah,
and
but
so therefore you're wedded to that, right? You love that more than all of the other brawls because the passage of time has ease the pain, etc., etc.
Well, let me just pull back the curtain on yesterday a little bit. So the tweet that wouldn't load for me because there was too many people in Croke Park was something, I don't know what the caption was, something desperately unfunny as per usual, which was like this is masquerading between a schmozzle and a brawl on the spectrum. So I didn't even classify it in the tweet that never got sent as a brawl, because I didn't see the eye gouge actually happen, and I just thought it was just like a massive situation of people pulling and dragging, and those headlocks was really annoying headlocks.
Can we take the eye gouge out of it for a second?
Yeah.
And just because obviously that's going to be its own separate issue. It's horrific. It looks absolutely grim, and it's on the front of all of the papers. That's the very front cover, not of the sports section of the Irish Times, but of the actual newspaper itself. It's on one of the tabloids. Eyesore is the picture, and it's Comer smiling afterwards, I think, so he doesn't seem to have been too damaged, thankfully. Oh no, Pete's Love Island is the headline. Pete Taylor got married again. That's the only of the front pages. He was able to knock them off on that one. And then I think this one is the Sunday Shame, Gouging Horror, Mars Game. That's the Sun. So the gouge is absolutely despicable, and we don't want to make light of the gouge, and there should definitely be a lengthy suspension handed down, particularly because the person involved wasn't part of the matchday squad, and so therefore, is this a legal issue? Should it be a legal issue? Should we start making definitely all of that conversation should happen, 100%. But taking the brawl on its merits, apart from that, I think it's definitely right up there, right? You've got management from both teams centrally involved in the midst of it, like horsing lads out of it, being peacemakers before my phone melts. They were definitely being peacemakers, but that immediately elevates it from just the two teams. No,
I think it felt elevated because of the context of it, that we had just witnessed what felt at the time like one of the most spectacular collapses in a knockout football game, or one of the greatest comebacks you're likely to see. And then all of a sudden you have this flashpoint at the end where Armagh have got under Galway's skin, and it's being manifested in a brawl. You could make an argument that the brawl was just a really bad idea by Armagh, and I don't want to say who started it, but it does feel like obviously the James Morgan yapping at full time is a central part of is one of the matches that's used to bring this whole thing to fire. And I'm not sure if he had his time back he would try and light that match again, because coming back from 7 points down late on, scoring 2 late goals, it's a pretty good way to get under the opponent's skin. That brawl, I wonder, at the end, does that give Galway an extra bit of a kick? You saw Sean Kelly's face when he saw the eye gouge. He was furious, absolutely furious with what he had seen, and rightly so. Like, he's bringing that energy into the dressing room at full time. That collective energy going out into extra time. Like, I wonder did the Brawl actually serve Armagh well at all? Like, they are the common denominator with a lot of the big brawls we've seen this year. I can understand why you might try and start a flare-up at certain points in the game to take the energy out of the game, to get under the opponent's skin, and Armagh have always been very, very good at doing that. I'm just not sure it actually... I think Galway might have been the winners, even though one of their guys got eye gouged. I think they might have been the winners as a result of this. I think it just completely, I don't know, it gave them maybe an extra kick of energy. Maybe not. The gap in between full time and extra time was extraordinarily long anyway.
Unbelievable.
It just was like, what are we doing? We're waiting and waiting and waiting.
Why do they go off the field? Like, why do they have to go off the field? At full time in a game where it's a draw, sorry lads, you've got 3 minutes, we're changing ends, away we go.
Yeah.
Like, everything has all been telescoped, and the conversation is now like there are too many. The penalties has become this big thing. You're like, lads, shut up, right? We knew what the rules were in advance. If you were this exercised by it, show up at Congress, put your hand up, go to a meeting in your club and say, I'd like to put a proposal for it, because we all knew what was coming. So just shut up about the penalties and get on with it for now. If you want to change it, let's have that conversation at the end of the year. Many other things happened yesterday of far greater significance than the penalties. Like, I lost that there because why didn't RTE cut the footage? Don't need people seeing this, says David Tomney. I'm like, what? Imagine they cut the footage. Of course we need to see it. That's the whole point.
So what happened on TV?
They were about to go to a break. They were about to go to a break, and then the fight started. And they're like, oh well, we just keep an eye on this, see what happens. And then it kept getting bigger and bigger. I think it lasted about a minute, did it?
Longer. I think my video was a minute and 20 seconds.
Right.
So that is a lengthy enough brawl. And I just like with the amount of people involved, there was like 3 mini schmozzles within it. So it just kept, the momentum just kept going and going and going until everybody eventually got totally exhausted. But like, I mean, there's just so many different elements to it all, like as well, even kind of that instance earlier than that, where, was it earlier than that or later than that, where the umpire just told, down with that sort of thing?
That was the end of normal time.
That was in the normal time, right?
Little did he know.
Little did he know what was about to happen. Like, he's the guy who's at fault for this. He's the guy who really wound them up. You can't tell us what to do, umpire, is what Armagh thought. Like, for me, like, it was quite unusual that this was a game that this happened with. Like at half time, there was no sense of any sort of nastiness going down the tunnel. This was a complete... The second half just took on a whole life of its own, this game. I thought the first half was grand. I did see people at half time like raving about the first half of the game.
Yeah,
I thought it was fine.
Yeah,
I thought Galway were desperate at the start, and it actually felt a little bit pedestrian at times, that first half, and then the second half just took off like a rocket. And for me, one of the moments where I first realised that this was going to have a little bit something spicy about it was when Conor Mackin came on with his goggles and immediately starts verbally possibly abusing the man he was marking, arms around him sort of thing. The Galway man yapping back at him. I'd love to know what he was saying to him, but he was sent out there with a message to get right inside the head of the Galway man. And the red card obviously is a significant enough thing. I think Armagh felt particularly aggrieved when they saw it live. In the stadium, you don't know that actually the referee probably got it right. You just have no idea. Again,
being in the stadium, being an inferior product to being at home watching on TV, like...
Sometimes.
Come on.
Like, I mean... What a call by Coldrick. Coldrick was reffing it, right, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, what a call to get that in real time, because when I saw it, I was like, well, that's shoulder to shoulder. To make those decisions in real time was really, really difficult.
There's an eruption of blood. I think that helps. I think that definitely helps with your decision, is like, okay, there's blood. How did that happen if it was shoulder to shoulder? Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, how did he cut his head? Was it a clash of heads? Because the Armagh man definitely goes down and makes it look like there's a clash of heads. But I think that gave him a bit of confidence that something more has happened here.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's led with the head or he's led with the elbow. It's that there's a recklessness to it, and that's the bit that allows me to brandish the red card, which was a correct decision. Like, you have to say, Galway were clearly the better outfit over the 90 minutes of gameplay, but are so flaky that they can't be trusted themselves. Like, the one thing about the nastiness, there was definitely an air where there was an off-the-ball challenge on Shane Walsh, which was almost in exactly the same spot as he'd been done last year by Mayo, in a very similar situation where he's like writhing in the turf, holding his surgically reconstructed shoulder, you're like, I mean, if this doesn't inspire Galway to go and fight fire with fire, but it didn't really. Like it seemed to just make them more retreat into their shell as the game went on. And then for Shane Walsh to be the player who kicks the ball across the field aimlessly to give Armagh the opportunity, you're like, well, this is as you said, one of the all-time great GA collapses, and for them to come out of that the other side bruised and still going, I don't know what happens now. I don't know what happens now to Galway. I don't know what to think of them after yesterday.
Neither do I. I actually think we're going into a semi-final weekend, which is like Galway Armagh times 2, where both games are kind of a toss of a coin when it comes to predictions, and that's a really exciting prospect. Yesterday, Galway Armagh was the most extraordinary GAA game I've ever seen live, and it's something very, very, very dramatic will have to happen in the future for it to be topped. I'm not saying it's the best game I ever saw. As I said, I think the first half was actually overrated, but it was the most extraordinary GAA game I've ever seen live, and it probably won't be topped. The energy in that stadium was absolutely incredible yesterday. It was Armagh Day. It was just a sea of orange everywhere you looked. I've never seen, it was like a throwback to the 90s with the amount of flags that the Armagh people had clearly been instructed to bring into the canal end with them, and it was just this incredible afternoon. Like on the Galway point, I really thought they were so bad in that first half, but yet they go in at half-time level. Like, does that actually point to maybe an element of steel that we're not giving them credit for? And another, like maybe that's just Armagh not capitalising enough on their, I guess, a little bit of dominance that they had in that first half, not getting enough scores. But there was something plucky about Galway going in at half-time level. Like, I just didn't think that they were level pegging at all. I do agree, though, second half I thought they were much the better team, as was evidenced by being 6-7 points up at one stage. Didn't
they also have a late collapse against Roscommon that didn't actually matter because they were so far ahead?
Yeah,
haven't they had these late collapses? Exactly. Haven't they had these late collapses over recent years? So, like, it's in them to do this, and if they can just get that out, then they could win these games by 7 to 10 points. Like, so it's really weird. And
why didn't Armagh kick the ball in high and long more after they discovered that this was actually something that might prove fruitful for them? I just couldn't get my head around it. Like,
it was a completely anyway. You go and listen to GA Late Night if you want.
That is absolute essential listening.
If you want some Armagh voices telling you what they thought should have happened with those long balls going in, raining in.
Like the thing for Galway, like, was maybe it's just like lazy analysis, but it definitely felt that, you know, if Armagh could like stop Conroy and Walsh and Comer, they would have stopped Galway, and that goes for every team. And maybe, I'm not sure, is it just because the lads have been around with the team a little bit longer than some of the other players, but it definitely feels that there's kind of like a B-side to this Galway team, or felt that way.
Yeah.
But they all stepped up yesterday, like McDade, Finnerty, and Tierney. They were the three for me where it was like, okay, this is an arrival moment for those three players where they can disprove that they're not of the quality of those three aforementioned players, that they can be the leaders of a team, aka having enough players now to go and win in All-Ireland.
But maybe they're overthinking games. Maybe they're trying to manage games and they're not quite at the standard of team who are able to manage games. They just need to keep doing what they were doing, as opposed to, we're going to turn into Dublin here and play keep ball for the last 7 minutes of the game and bore because they can't do it. They've been blatantly unable to do it, as opposed to trying to continue going for it and trying to score. So we'll come back to that because we've loads of time to talk about Galway. An unbelievable game to be at. Not good for Galwayman's heart. On the incident, looks like pushing and shoving before the gouge. A few punches thrown by Galway subs. Kelly should be okay for Derry. I think so. I can't see.
Oh man, he has to play.
Anthony Ryan says, in every other tunnel, teams go in and out of the same tunnel. Why is this too much to ask for in GAA? I don't know. I mean, I think in a lot of other sports aren't actually, you're not like hopping off your direct opponent. It's not like part of the rules where you're literally allowed to shoulder your direct opponent to try and knock him down. Like in soccer, you can just about get away with that, but it never happens. So, like, you know, it's a completely different thing. GAA brings new meaning to the term tunnel vision, says Kenny the dad. Brawl aside, Rian O'Neill, what a player, says Philip Dolan. Like, I mean, unfortunately, Rian O'Neill's equaliser, which should be one of the all-time great GAA moments, is going to be like the C or D story from everything that happened. But like, what a, yeah, I'll do this, no problems.
And Coulter didn't let them take the quick free kick. They get the free kick and they kick it backwards. And then Coulter tells them, stop, no, you got to retake that free kick. And then they realise, actually, we can pop this over the bar. That, I don't know, like, I mean, does that circle us back to the first half of this game? Armagh not believing that they can, actually rack up a bit of a score here, not actually capitalising on a bit of dominance, as I said, against Galway in that first half, not knowing that in that moment, you have a person who can kick the ball over the bar. Like, I don't know, it's at the end of an absolutely mental game, so I'm sure that it's hard to be completely thinking clear.
Owen Hurley says, lads are too ballsy because they know they'll be pulled apart. Should just do what ice hockey does and let them at it. Give them 2 minutes in the sin bin to chill out afterwards. Third man in gets a red. It's like a concussion issue around that. You know, lots of people have had CTE as a result of multiple beatings that they've taken in ice hockey. Cause of the scuffle and any egregious provocation can get looked at by the fourth official. Philip Nolan says, sure, look, the gouger took a thump from the Galway sub immediately afterwards. Job done, move on. There was a bit of rough justice handed out. Anyone else notice the guard in the top corner of the picture with his arms folded? Well, there was another guard who was like getting involved, who was like pushing people apart, going, here, well, stop this, lad, stop it. She was at least doing her job. The rest of them are like, I mean, I don't know, maybe they're told not to do anything. Maybe they're actually told, if you do get involved, then it becomes a Garda matter, whereas actually your job is to police the crowd. The sporting event is looked after. I don't know. It's all a bit of a grey area, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like could you whip out the baton and start wading in on the lads, going, stop it, get back. Can you imagine that?
Man, like everybody.
Because if this happened on the street, that's what they'd be doing.
Everybody getting pepper sprayed.
Yeah. Jack Emeraldo says some of the fight promotions have neutral ninjas all dressed in black. They jump in and they pull the lads apart. That would be amazing. Can you imagine the list of volunteers? Who's your neutral? Like every corner boy from every small town in Ireland volunteering to come up, dressed all in black with their gimp mask on, to get in and be the one to pull them all apart. Right, lots of comments coming in. We need to move on. What's next?
We're going to be coming back to that game in a sec. I feel we might run out of time, but let's just move to Mayo, because they're also in the reds this morning because they were bad yesterday, and like there's probably wider questions that are going to be asked around Mayo over the next little while. James Horn didn't really kind of like comment on any of those issues yesterday, as you might expect. Right after the game, he wasn't going to make an emotional response to questions around his future, around players' future, and to be honest, it's not up for him to be talking for the players' futures anyway, for some of them that might be deciding whether or not they're in or out for next year. It does feel that this could be the end of Oran Mark II. Like it does feel like this is a big old climb next year for them to get back to an All-Ireland final again. Granted, they were missing a couple of players yesterday, and that definitely impacted their season somewhat, the injuries that they have sustained, and it's been a bit of a turbulent season for them. But it does feel this is kind of a little bit of a full stop in the current part of Mayo and their story. It feels that like something new has to happen for them to get back to the All-Ireland final next year. They were just so bad yesterday, and like maybe some people did see it coming. I thought there was a higher level of performance in them, and it just didn't happen, especially in that second half.
They were abysmal in the second half. When it was right there for them, when the opportunity had presented itself, they couldn't take it. Like, that's the end of the golden generation of Mayo football. It is officially over. Whatever happens next is a new generation, and it's a new team. But like, that team that we came to know and love as the main team that went toe to toe with the Dubs is over. And I think, like, there's nothing that they can do. The point you make about the injuries, right? And I see some of the Mayo people who are good Mayo football fans who are like, hang on a second now, we didn't have our full team out. You never have your full team out. You really never have your full team out.
Especially not this year.
In any situation, though, ever. Yeah. Do you know, Kerry have their best player playing on one wing and some other issues around selection at the moment. The Dubs have, their two most important players out, but they're still going on. Like, that's what happens. There's never been a year where all the Mayo players were all fully fit and all available at one time, because that's how the game works. And so you can't point to the injuries as being the thing, next year it's going to be grand because of the injuries, because other players will just get injured. They don't have the strength and depth to be able to do it. Their biggest opportunity, it turns out, was last year, and they couldn't do it. And then this year, when the opportunity was there for them again against a Kerry side who were sputtering because they actually haven't had the challenge that they need or the football that they need, and weren't performing particularly well, they still couldn't get it done. And in the end, they weren't even close to getting it done. They got absolutely annihilated, really, yesterday. Once you kind of parse what happened, Kerry were ruthless, Mayo weren't. Kerry are a far superior team to this Mayo team, and therefore Mayo are no longer in the conversation as All-Ireland contenders. No matter what happens next year, go and win the league, I still won't trust you. Like, I actually won't trust this Mayo team again until they're climbing the steps, because they can't do it.
Like, I do think, though, the last couple of years, like getting to those two All-Ireland finals, like, unless it's just been a dramatic drop-off this year,
They beat Tipperary in the semi-final.
Yeah,
and
I know. Like,
you know, like I think you just got to.
they beat Dublin in a semi-final.
Big mark through COVID. So fair enough. They beat the Dubs last year, but like.
I think that there's like I'm not saying like I'm not necessarily saying what you're saying is wrong, but I just feel that there is this notional thing with Mayo about their ceiling. Like, what can this group of players achieve? And
Well, they can't kick the ball over the bar from scoring positions.
And yet they still beat one of the greatest teams of all time last year. So what does that say? Like, I mean, if you can't kick the ball over the bar and you're still beating Dublin, like, that to me suggests a team with a ceiling that is greater than what we saw yesterday. Like, I don't think yesterday is a real representation
Well, it seems
of where
to
Mayo
be.
should be at.
But like they were horrible against Kildare. Like, they were really fluky to win that game. Like, they should have gone out in the last round. And that's the level they're at the moment. They're a quarter-final team at the moment.
They're playing like a quarter-final team. I think that the Mayo fans could possibly have expected a little bit more from them this year. Like, and granted, once you draw Kerry in a quarter-final, you're not favoured to win that game. Kerry could well go on to win the All-Ireland, and that could they may look back and say that they were always going to lose that game. It just feels there's like, have they absolutely maximised everything, even given the injuries this year? I wonder. Was there a style of play going to be something that would give Kerry serious problems?
I don't know about that. That's a good question.
Like, Kevin McLaughlin absolutely needs to nail that goal opportunity in the first half, and he doesn't. But like, that comes down to one person in one moment, and in a big day in Croke Park, that ball can easily fly over the bar. Paul Ganey absolutely botched a brilliant opportunity in the first half as well. So to me, the game plan wasn't set up in a way to unlock that Kerry defence enough to give Mayo good quality goal chances, and they needed to score goals to beat Kerry. Granted, Kerry do not give up goal chances at the moment, so that's a very difficult thing to do. But I just feel the Mayo style of play that would have given Kerry lots of problems in 2017 would not give Kerry problems yesterday, and it probably turned out that way.
This has the bang of the Germany annihilation of England when Frank Lampard scored the goal that should have been given but wasn't given, and that was the end of the golden generation. That's the end of that team, I think, as far as that team goes. Alan Moore says the point about the injuries in Mayo, they were missing their best two scoring forwards in O'Donoghue and Conroy, but last year they were missing Killian, and he was their best scoring forward, and the previous year somebody else was injured, and that's the thing. Like, somebody's always going to be injured. You're always going to be missing some of your best players. That's how this goes. Some players will walk away, some players will take time off. Like, that's just the rules of engagement when it comes to Gaelic football. You never have a full deck to deal with, so stop whining about not having a full deck and deal with the deck that you have, and then come at us and say, okay, well, we're good enough.
And there isn't time anymore in the condensed season to allow these injuries to heal. I think probably a backdoor route is more taxing now, given the condensed season. We saw that all 4 provincial winners did win at the weekend. Granted, stats like that, we can sometimes get carried away and overanalyse it, but maybe we'll see over the next couple of years, if the split season continues, that actually is the way to go. You need to be winning your province to win the All-Ireland. So like, I think the injuries thing, it did impact Mayo, just like the exact type of injuries they got. They might have sustained even an Oisin Mullen injury better than they would have sustained a Ryan O'Donoghue injury, just given the lack of scores in the forwards. And I know Mayo people are pissed off around that analysis of you don't have scores in the forwards, because, you know, the backs and their scores all count as well. It's not about forwards versus backs, it's about the volume of scores. Yeah. Having options on the pitch, you can get scores.
It's actually about players who you know are going to hit 70-75%.
Like, if you've got Cillian O'Connor who's missing straightforward frees, you know it's going to be a very, very difficult day. Now, the flip side is, when you've got Aidan O'Shea pinging over 45-yard efforts off the outside of the boot, you start to think it is going to be Mayo's day. So, very Mayo is probably the conclusion on all of that.
Yeah, Mayo-esque. It's a bit Spursy. Right, next.
Penalties, Amber. I'm not having penalties in the red, you know, because that seems to be the conclusion, I think, isn't it? That, you know, penalties bad, penalties soccer, penalties not GAA. So
shut up.
I think we've got to separate how sorry we feel for Armagh with whether or not penalties is a good or a bad idea.
It was brilliant. Now, I think that, like, was it a toss to decide which end it was?
I don't know, I presume so.
Or was it just always going to be at that end? I don't know. Is there a cameras or something issue? I don't know. But certainly Into the Hill, like, it's iconic. It's a big opportunity missed.
In Croke Park, though, was iconic enough for me. Like, I just kind of like trying to absorb as much of this as possible. I'd never seen a penalty shootout live in GAA before, and even just like little bits like seeing the Croke Park scoreboard working as normal, like a 4-0 to 1-0 sort of thing.
Is that what it did? Yeah.
With the goals, the tally in brackets, so it was like 12-3. as the penalties were actually happening, which I was, and also the umpire going when the Galway man or the Armagh man hit the post and it went wide. You know, they'd lost basically, and the umpire still waved it wide. And it was like rubbing salt into the Armagh wounds, like Stephen Campbell crying on the turf and the umpire going wide. Actually, no, that was a point. Did the umpire wave the white flag? I'm not quite sure. But yeah, just the little kind of the Croke Park specifics of it all was very, very enjoyable. I think penalties absolutely has a place in the GAA. It is a rule that exists in open play. Like people, like I don't understand the thing that it's like not a skill.
It's not a skill they practice. Like it turns out they do.
Galway were practicing all year.
It turns out they do practice it. And they should be practicing it, and it makes sense to practice, and it's part of the rules, and everybody knew what the rules of engagement were before the competition started, so like you didn't care that much about it when it came up for conversation the first time around. Okay, so now you've seen it, fair enough, you have an opinion, great, welcome. And maybe golden score would be better, maybe it would be better.
So interesting.
But like, come on.
The one thing I would say is that, like, as on a selfish level, I mean, that open play, extra time and second half of normal time, they were just brilliant times of football, like, and you just want more of that. Yeah, and like, I mean, we were talking about Kerry Mayo 2014 in the show last week, like Kerry Mayo 17, all the great Kerry or Mayo Dublin replays. A replay does have like an epic feel to it as well. 2 games, it's like kind of like a multi-game series. It feels brilliant. Like, I wonder if actually you get to a certain stage in the season, it does go replay, and then for the second replay, for the replay, then you have the penalty shootout option.
That's what they're doing for the All-Ireland final, right?
Is that what it is, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. So that could be the solution for once you get to the knockout stages. But like, I mean,
no time in the calendar for a replay here, though.
Like,
right?
we got to realise why penalties were brought in. Penalties were brought in because we wanted more definition in the GAA calendar. We wanted to know when a conclusion would begin and when it would end. And I guess if people are complaining about, you know, club fixtures being pushed back all the time, then like penalties and winner on the day was a solution to it. And it's like really, really unique, and I was so happy when the game went to penalties on the Sunday, because like it's just not something I'd seen before.
One last point about this, and so Armagh go a point up, right? Why didn't they just do what Dublin did and squash everybody
down?
What?
Pull everybody to the ground, yeah.
So,
I was expecting that to happen.
And the ball is down, like it's a Galway kick out. Why didn't they just at that point black card everybody? Come on, ref, what are you gonna do? Like,
yeah.
Because if I mean, maybe Galway can work a goal, but it's very unlikely. And where does the ball get restarted from? If everybody does it at the same time, I thought it was the most Armagh thing of all time to just like, right, everybody, here we go.
Maybe they hadn't got. Maybe, you know, like that's just part of a team's development. That actually the little bit at the end of the knockout game in Croke Park is actually something hard to figure out. Like, which I think maybe makes Derry's performance, which we'll get to in a moment, all the more extraordinary on Saturday. Is that
we've 2 minutes left here, Max.
Yeah, they just showed up to Croke Park and just pumped Clare. Like, I mean, it was just.
They also delightedly, one of my favourite things that they've done is like punctured the whole, Derry will win nothing like that in Croke Park, and then they're like, what? So teams who are really good defensively who come through the Ulster Championship, they've got a really bad record in Croke Park, don't they? Oh no, wait, hang on a second, they don't.
To be fair, no, I'll hold my hands up and say on Friday morning I said Derry Clare is going to be a lot closer than people expect. I was completely wrong. I did expect Clare to give Derry a serious rattle, and it was because they went to Croke Park and they beat Roscommon a couple of weeks previous, and I wouldn't necessarily have thought, certainly at the outset of the year, that Roscommon are that much off Derry. So I just thought it was going to be a much better game. I did also say, though, that if Derry get an early goal, this could be it's obviously going to be a Derry win, and that's exactly what happened. The early goal, it's not just the volume of goals that Derry are scoring, it's the timing of them. Getting early goals, Rory Gallagher just goes absolutely ballistic on the sideline.
Well,
he's spitting everywhere, and like just like it is amazing. He looked like it's from minute one.
Higher and higher and higher and higher. How does he follow it up?
From minute one of this championship, Derry have looked like they're on a path that is just going to end in them winning the All-Irelands. I am convinced that the Dublin Kerry side of the draw will not want this team in the final.
No, they want Galway.
I think they do.
They want Galway.
But by the same token, I could very much see Galway winning the semi-final. The one thing I'd be just really concerned about is just the way Armagh pumped loads of high ball in on top of that Galway goalkeeper and got massive goal opportunities off it. Derry, with Route 1, score a lot of goals. That could be a perfect storm in a very, very bad way for Galway.
We'll come back to this a little bit later on, because we've got Anthony Moyles outside, we've got Aaron Kernan coming on a little bit later on, so plenty of time to talk about Derry. Who else is in green?
Patrick Harrington, US Senior Open champion, his first major on the over 50s tour. Won it last night at Saucon Valley. Walking around the greens, fist pumping on his back nine. Things got pretty nervous for him in the latter stages of this tournament. He took a 5-shot lead into the final day, ended up winning by 1. It was Steve Stricker that he beat. Obviously, Stricker getting one over Padraig Harrington as captain of the Ryder Cup last year. You could kind of feel that the American golf commentators wanted Stricker to win. So Harrington, was the big up yours to American golf commentators.
720 grand.
Yeah.
Not bad for a week's work in your 50s.
Yeah, not bad. I was trying to wonder, how is he so nervous when this guy's actually won majors before? And I was like, oh, that would make sense when you've got 700 grand on the line. So there's only 4 other players who've won the British Open and the US Seniors Open, and they're Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus and Lee Trevino. So Padraig Harrington joins a pretty exclusive list.
Yeah, he didn't think it was possible to further embellish his reputation, but it is. Right, that is this week's Gillette Labs Performance Rankings.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.